Hello YouTube. I'm making I guess you can say a part two of the powering of my light bars video. The reason for this video is I had one of my subscribers leave me a comment asking me if I could kind of explain a little better how I did my uh, power supply, how I ran all my power, because when I did that last video and I opened this all up, there's a massive rat nest of wires back there. I mean, you can see where I only have two wires, going in. Obviously a nice heavy duty ground cable, which I'll explain why that's so heavy duty, my positive cable. But, coming back out of it, you see I just got a mess of wires coming out, going all kinds of different directions and all that. And then with all that wiring in the way, and I was trying to pull everything away so you can kind of see my little positive blocks that I have in there to essentially separate everything. And it was kind of hard to see where things were coming from, where they were going, where they were headed, and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to make a video of that and try to explain a little bit better. He asked if I could make kind of like a mock-up per se. So I made a small mock-up showing how I did everything to really show it much easier than the way I did before. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by talking about the grounds, because the shelving system that I'm using is also acting as the grounds for all the lights, the light bars and the beacons. So I'm going to talk about that first, and I'll get into the rest of it. So here we go. So here's the mock-up. But like I said, I'm going to talk about the grounds. For my shelving, I'm using these adjustable shelving systems. Now these actually come close to 5 to 6 feet long. Obviously, it's just a cutoff piece. Then you have your actual little bracket. You can get these in like 3 different sizes, lengths. Now, if you've never used this kind of system before, it's kind of a two-part system. If, say, you have a garage that is all drywalled, or you're going to be hanging inside your house, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to catch the studs good enough to really anchor these, they have this upper piece that you're supposed to use. Now this goes across. You make sure you level it. You anchor it to your studs, and then the pieces would have like a notch right here, like a 45-degree notch that kind of angles upward, and there's a little lip here, and it would go right here and it would clip on, to the original. So at that point, you really only have to put some of those little wall anchors in there just to keep it from moving like this, but you wouldn't necessarily have to put it into the studs, because this is now kind of carrying the weight. But whenever you can put it in the stud, always do that, because obviously going to make it much stronger. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about my mock-up, and let me get my stand set up, and I'll start explaining this part. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to talk about the ground first. Now, kind of picture this as a car, automotive, because this is a 12-volt system. All your lights are 12-volt. So kind of figure this, or kind of have the mindset that you're essentially working on a car per se. So what I did is, obviously here's little track pieces. Now obviously for the light bars, I'd have 2 of those, about 42 inches apart or so, for my light bars. And you have, the shelf piece that goes into it. And then on the beacons, my little small rotators, I just have little plates like this screwed to the wall. So what I did is, this is my power supply that I'm using for the demonstration. But, if you have a car battery that you're using, a drill battery, power supply, whatever, just think of this as a car battery, no matter what you're using. So this is my negative post off my car battery. And normally when you have your negative post and you'd have your negative cable, you would attach it to the engine block. And then obviously you have ground straps that go from your engine block to your chassis. And that's how you get your ground system in your car. So essentially that's really all I did. I just took my ground wire and ran it to my metal plates. And then I made little jumpers that would go to all my uprights. So essentially what I did is all my uprights, all my shelving across the whole back, plus I have like 3 of these plates along the back wall, and they all have jumpers, so they're all grounded. And that was the reason why I had that one thick cable. That thick cable was one cable going up, and then it branched over to all the other ones. And what that did is that made it to where I didn't have to have multiple wires for the grounds going up to where my lights are. I just had the one wire going to the top, and that's it. And the other reason why I did it this way to help make it so kind of simplified it is, say this, my shelf is in there, and my light bar sitting right on here, Now, how many times have you ever really gotten a light bar that has a nice long pigtail attached to it? They're usually cut pretty short, you know, a couple inches, maybe 6 inches, depending on how generous the person was that originally cut it off. So by doing it this way, I can take my ground wire right from the bottom of the light bar and just go straight to here. So now that minimized having to buy a bunch of extra wire, run a bunch of wires all over the place that's not needed. It went from here to here, and that's all I had to do. And that took care of all the grounds for all the lights, including the beacons. Where, say, this is on my back when I had like 2 or 3 beacons stacked right here. I would just take the negative wires of all 3 of those and run them here. So pretty much what it is car battery, chassis of my vehicle to my light. Kind of the same principle as if you're installing it on your car. You're going to essentially take your negative and you're just going to screw it to a portion of your vehicle, whether that's scraping off a little bit of paint on a bedside or something like that and run a screw through it, or hook it to your chassis. So look at these as the chassis or the sheet metal of your car. And that's essentially how I made the negative side of my my whole system. The positive side is kind of in the same manner, just a little bit different. So here's my positive post, my positive wire coming in. I picked up one of these distribution blocks. Now, what these are for is these are for like your residential home or commercial breaker panels, your breaker box. These are for your neutral and your grounds. These come multiple sizes, from only being maybe 3 or 4 of these, you know, screws to probably about 20 screws. And what I mean by your neutral and your grounds, that's the white wire and your bare wire, or your white wire and the one with the green on it, depending on your local building codes or what it's for. But that's generally what these would be used for on your breaker panel. But they're great for this process, because what it allows me to do is, if say I'm running 20 lights, and say I have one of these that have, you know, 20 sections in it, I can mount 20 switches, and all I gotta do is just have a screw. You just pull it out, slide the wire in here, tighten it up, you run it to your switch. Now you've made your positive from here to your switch. So it's almost like this would almost be acting like your fuse box on your car, where your fuse box, all your leads go into there, and those all branch out to all the accessories of the vehicle, whether it be your wiper blades, your blinkers, your brake lights, and that kind of stuff. But obviously this is not a fuse, so don't look at this as a fuse. I'm just using that as a reference, that it's essentially a break-off point for everything else. So I have my power coming in, that's going to my block, and then from my block, I'm going to each one of my switches. Now I'm only running 2 lights for this demonstration, so I have 2 switches. And then from my switch, I have another wire that's going from the other end switch, and that's going to the positive side of my light. Now, pretty much what this is obviously kind of the same thing. You might only have a pigtail that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches long if you're lucky. So what I did is I picked up some of that, I think it was a 14 gauge lamp wire. It looked just like speaker wire, but it was a heavy duty black wire, so this way it kind of blended in a little bit better. All I did is I just ran those from my switches to my light bar and used some form of fastener, some form of connector, whether it be a butt connector or like a male female, you know, style connector where they push together and you pull them back apart. However you want to do that part is completely up to you and your design. For here, I'm just using these because I had these. Now, on the gentleman that asked me to make this, he wanted me to show a rocker style switch, which this is the most common switch you're going to see for like emergency vehicles, police cars, fire trucks, anything like that, where they have that little switch box that's mounted somewhere in the vehicle, and they have all the switches across there. And then they're usually labeled alley, takedown, strobes, wig wags, that kind of stuff. And it's just your basic everyday just plastic rocker switch. You have a couple different styles. You have this one right here, which is just your basic. Then you have ones that have a little light on them, where if you have an extra ground here, so when you turn it on, the light switch lights up and all that. I just picked up just a regular one just for this demonstration purpose. And then I have my household light switch right here. I put this on because this is what I'm using on mine. Now, I didn't use these because I felt that they were better. I use these because they're way cheaper. You can usually pick these up for anywhere from like 60 something cents all the way up to maybe $1 something, versus these are anywhere from about $5 up to about $10 to $12 a piece. So if you think about, if I have 30 of these switches and they're only $1 a piece, after tax, it's probably gonna be about 35 bucks for 30 of these. If say these are $5 a piece, I need 30 of those, do the math. That's a substantial difference from price range from this to this. Plus these are much easier to get a hold of. You can pick them up at any store. I mean, I think even Walmart carries these things. So that's why I went with this, because it was much easier accessible, cheaper, easier to use. Two, like on this style switch, you have to have, the female style push-on connector, where your regular house one just has a screw. So if you didn't have any connectors, you can just wrap the wire right around the screw and tighten it. So you don't have to go and buy a whole bunch of connectors and all that stuff. So it also helps save money on that end too. So now that I got some of that explained, I tend to ramble sometimes, so I apologize. So please stick with me. I'm going to go ahead and show you the system. So some people might be thinking, okay, well, I got these things open. These are bare. What if somebody touches it? That kind of stuff. This a 12-volt DC system is going to be kind of like, I'm going to use a 9-volt battery as a reference. Is like a 9-volt battery. You can sit there and you can put your finger across to touch it. You're not going to get shocked. But people always stick them on their tongue to see if they have any power in them. What that is obviously, with your tongue being wet, you're giving the current a path to travel. This would be the same thing. So when I turn this on, just to show that it's on, I got my light here, so I have power to it, but you can see it's not going to shock you. Now, if my hand was completely soaking wet and I'm giving that current a path to travel, and I do that, yeah, I'm probably going to feel something. But obviously, you're not going to walk up to something soaking wet, deliberately press it and see if you get shocked. So leaving these bare, against the back wall or something like that, or even this up inside your switch area, it's not going to have any problems. As long as these two aren't touching for any reason, too close to each other, or a wire falls down, something like that, it's not going to be a problem. So don't worry about the fact that they're just raw looking metal, because once you put your screw in there, you're not going to hurt anything. So now, like I said, the way this system is like I said, I got my ground, ground negative end. It's going to my grounds, or like you said, my chassis, and then runs to a light. I got my positive, run to my block, or like I said, you almost act like it's a fuse panel, but it's actually, it's not. Runs to the switch. The switch runs to the other half of the light. So here's the regular house switch. See, and it goes right to the light, and then you got your rocker. All right, now I'm going to kind of hold this up a little bit. So if somebody wants to say, maybe do a screenshot of it, just as something they can refer back to as a reference. Okay, so I hope this video kind of helped explain some of the questions, or what, some of the questions that somebody might have had of how I did that, or where were those wires really going. So hopefully this video answers those questions. If you like this video, hit the like button, leave me a comment, let me know. Subscribe, and like always, I appreciate you all watching my videos, and have a good day.